Dude, I swear to God, you have no idea how much you use your back to do literally everything until you hurt it, and Jesus Christ, it was brutal. I've hurt my back before in the past on a number of occasions, going back especially pretty much since I was in early high school, and I've even gotten physical therapy treatment many years back for these issues and whatnot, and I haven't really had serious back issues ever since. Although on and off, every once in a while you get a really rough session at the gym, or you sit down funny, or you're working some sort of physical job. I'm very familiar with back pain, but what I experienced this past 6 days is nothing like that. This was another level. I mean, this wasn't just back pain. It hurt so bad. Like, I'm talking 9 or 10 out of 10 level pain. The only thing that might have hurt more is if somebody blasted off one of my limbs with a shotgun. My back was just completely useless, totally unusable. I literally could not even sit up straight, even in bed or while lying down. I could not elevate myself at all whatsoever. We had to stay even 90-degree level, and I just fucking laid there on that bed for the past 5.5, 6 days straight or so, without even being able to move across the bed. Like, you see my bong right over there on that side of the bed? All right, I spent most of my time on the farther side of the bed, and it was impossible for me to even crawl over and rip the bong. Hell, I couldn't even sit up, like I said, to use it if I even got that far. I was immobile. Thankfully, I don't live alone, but even my mother was trying to give me a warm sock full of rice, and I couldn't even roll over to fit it underneath my back. Like, we had to just like kind of jam it in there, and it never really got at the spot perfectly, but you know, it was better than nothing. And it just completely came out of nowhere. Like, I was standing right here, okay, right in front of where you see my bong is over there, and I was in the middle of hitting my bong, and I just put it back down, and I coughed a little bit, but that's normal, and then all of a sudden, my back just completely locked up, and I screamed, like, screamed. I know I'm just repeating myself over and over, but it is so hard to put into words how much this hurt. This was nothing like any back pain I've ever had before. So I immediately just fell backwards onto the bed to save myself in like a desperate attempt to relieve it. I then spent the next 5.5 days straight in that same position without moving. So there wasn't even like an injury I could point to. I mean, like, to the best of my memory, maybe I was sitting funny on the couch for an extended period of time the day before, but when I woke up that morning, this was Wednesday, yeah, my back was like maybe a little sore Wednesday morning, but nothing crazy, and I didn't go anywhere. I was just walking around the house. And then suddenly the dam just burst, and like I said, thank God I was next to my bed when this happened, because wherever else it might have happened in my house, I would have just ended up on the floor, and I would have stayed at that exact spot on the floor the whole night. I mean, the first night was the worst. Thank God I didn't have to take a shit until like 30 hours later or so, but I had to pee the first night of all of this being immobile, and my God, was that was something. I tried multiple times at this point to try to help myself get up. My mother would help me stand up a bit, and I would try to take a few steps, and all of a sudden I'm just screaming again, like it is not fucking happening. I tried maybe a solid like 12 times to get up and walk around, and each time it was just blistering pain. Like, it was not happening. So after like laying there for hours, I finally knew, like, I have to fucking pee. Like, I'm gonna burst. Like, I was so immobile, I could barely even use a bedpan. Like, basically my mom just handed me an empty Gatorade bottle, and it took me like a solid 20 minutes to move from laying down on the bed there to just sitting upright on the side of the bed. And the whole time I'm shimmying myself over, and I literally cannot lift my body, so my shorts are just totally like scrunching and wedging up into me. And then I managed to like barely make it to the end of the bed, and I can like barely slip my dick through like the bottom of my shorts, basically, because there's no way I was like lifting myself whatsoever. And bro, I'm not gonna lie, like I got some of it in the cup, but I mostly missed the cup. I mostly just hit the floor. And yeah, no, that was rough. So like taking a shit would have been impossible. Thank God I didn't have to. But the next day I was able to more reliably sit up straight. It definitely wasn't comfortable, and I couldn't stay that way. Like, I couldn't get myself into this office chair whatsoever from my bed. After that, you know, it was much easier to piss on the side of the bed into a bottle. Started racking them up, you know, after a while. No spills whatsoever. We've been perfect since the first attempt. But since it was not getting better anytime soon or very quickly at all, I mean, we pretty much determined that it was impossible to get me to even get into a car. I could not handle the walk to the car without extreme pain. But like, it was slowly improving. So I convinced my mom, like, don't waste the money on an ambulance, because like I would have needed an ambulance to get out of there. They would have had to have shot me up with something while I was on the bed just to get me onto the stretcher. And then that's a whole ordeal. Ambulances cost a lot of money. I'm like, nah, we're gonna wait it out. and I'm going to go the next day. You know, it should be hopefully good enough to get me there the next day. And that's when one of our neighbors actually managed to slip me one of their old granny walkers. Like, you know, those like old people walkers with like the tennis balls on the two legs and the wheels and shit like that. They literally gave me one of those. And I tried to use it, but again, like the horrible pain was still there. And at this point, I'm too scared to even like try my back anymore. I've been trying to go up, down, like this whole time, really, like trying to see if it's getting better at all. That was not helping whatsoever. It was not really improving. So I couldn't even use the walker, but my neighbor also happened to have some extra prescription muscle relaxers laying around, and she is a physical therapist doctor. So I took one of those pills. I believe it was tizanidine. And then later on in that day, she came by to check up on me and help me use the walker and whatnot. And I actually was able to take my first few steps at this point. This is like days into all of this. And when I say take a few steps, I literally mean a few steps. And they were not very quick steps. Like, it took me a solid like 3 minutes just to get across this basement, but I was moving. That's a huge improvement already. So that night I was able to finally take my first shit since all this was starting. And it took me like a solid 15 minutes just to get to the bathroom and get myself positioned and whatnot. But like, we got it done. That felt glorious, I'm not gonna lie. It was a very triumphant moment in this arc. And then later on, the muscle relaxer had actually really helped me improve a good bit for the first real time in this whole ordeal. And I was able to use the granny walker to like barely make it to my mother's car. And then we took me to urgent care, where they prescribed me like a whole cocktail of shit that really got the ball rolling. And dude, like, it was such a struggle just to get into the urgent care building. Like, I was walking up to the entrance for like a solid like 3 minutes straight. It's not a very long walkway. And some woman was holding the door for me. I'm walking in. I'm like, would you believe I'm only 25? I've never been crippled at all in my life, really. Like, certainly nothing like this, but like goddamn, you know, the shit we take for granted. So it was relatively quick though at urgent care. The doctor checked me out and just immediately kind of figured out what was up. It was, we pretty much just chalked it up to a muscle spasm. It wasn't anything like skeletal or anything like that. I didn't slip a disc or anything like that, it seems. So she prescribed me prednisone, cyclobenzaprine, and Aleve. And honestly, I mean, it all worked like a charm. Like, immediately the improvement was just rolling from there. But at this point, it's been like coming on like 4 days here, and I have not been able to move from this bed while I'm home. Like, sure, I use the walker to get out of the house, but the next morning I was so sore just from working it up the day before. But like, at least at this point, I was getting more comfortable in the bed, and I was able to use the walker to take shits if I had to. And you know, my mom was bringing me meals here and there, and I pretty much nailed the whole pissing into a bottle from an angle at the side of the bed trick. And so around this point, I was getting comfortable just like positioning myself differently on the bed, and it was easier for me to shimmy across the bed to like, you know, get to the other end, start ripping the bong a bit. And I even was able to get myself into this chair, although like it wasn't very comfortable at all to stay in for an extended period of time, so I couldn't work on the video. This whole thing started when I was in the middle of making a video. I'm in the middle of making like a huge video right now, and it just happened out of nowhere like that. I was like really frustrated this whole time that my computer is just sitting right there. I never thought in my life that I would ever experience an injury that could prevent me from doing this physically, but here we are. And so I gave it a few more days, kept taking the drugs or whatever, and this all started Wednesday last week. Up until last night, I was unable to really get up off this bed. And then last night, I was finally able to walk unassisted, and it was shaky at first, but like, I knew I had to build it back up or whatever. And as of today, which is Monday night now, I mean, I'm more or less back to normal-ish. You know, I definitely can't be going to the gym right now, but the back has no more pain, really, just like a tad bit of discomfort here. And dude, seriously, I had no idea how much I took walking for granted. I mean, seriously, like, respect out there to all of you fellow either partially or full-time disabled people out there. It's like, I got to experience that for nearly a week. Hell, I couldn't even take my first shower until like 2 nights ago. So I'm just like laying there on this bed in the same clothes, like pissing and shitting, like just 2 feet away from the bed, and just fucking like eating it. Just like, I was resisting hard at first, but like, talk about radical acceptance. Like, at some point, you just gotta kind of be like, fuck, man, this is how it is. So if you're currently going through somewhat of a similar experience, I feel for you, and I kind of understand what it's like. And so I do want to share a little bit of some of the things that just kind of got me through this, because I do think in the end I found more of a positive spin or a positive meaning through all of it. And like, I feel like that's worth sharing, because a lot of times we do run into shit and situations that just fucking suck, and you know, it feels like you have nothing to do to control it, or every now and then life puts you somewhere where you just gotta kind of fucking lay back in submission and accept it. I'm certainly no stranger to this. I mean, that's kind of what put me on the path to to starting this channel years ago. So otherwise I wouldn't even be doing this. That's a bit of a complicated story that I haven't shared or talked about very much before. I'm not trying to patronize any sort of, situation or experience you find yourself wrapped up in that you're not too happy about. But I will say that I have started to view these things much more like an opportunity for something that I maybe was otherwise overlooking. Like, it's no secret, if you're one of the few people who has been following my channel for these past few years, that I certainly am not as productive as I could be. I'm definitely not getting nearly as many videos out as I would like to. I have video ideas going back like 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago at the least. I mean, some of them even since I was a kid, because this isn't even the first YouTube channel I've ever made. And there's a number of reasons why I haven't handled this as well as I should have in the past few years. My life did completely, utterly fall apart. Like, right before I started this whole channel, it kind of like led to me making this channel, like I sort of mentioned. So that's like the main thing, a lot of the personal drama and struggles I've had going on outside of YouTube. But I have been doing a lot better with that lately. And so it was like really frustrating that right as I'm starting to be more like consistently productive, I just get like this thrown at me. I'm like physically unable to even get my work done for nearly a week straight. Because before, if I was just not getting it done, it's like I still had the ability to get it done. And it's like, now to have that ripped away from me, that was a real like change in perspective of how much I actually like valued being able and capable of doing this more often. Like, I feel like I really needed this past week to kind of like come to terms with all of like, ironically, the weight I've been carrying on myself for these past few years. I've just been under like so much pressure, like outside of YouTube and all that, but just like, it's been mounting for years at this point. Stuff that like I don't think a lot of you even want to hear about, and I'm not here to like bitch about it. But I mean, like I definitely needed a shift in perspective, because really I've just been apathetic, and like I couldn't see it as clearly until it was like impossible for me to look away from it. And so after the first few days, when I started to like accept the fact that I wasn't sure when I would be able to even sit up straight again, I started to like actually like practice meditation, for one, like something I'd been meaning to do, but never really had. Like, that's the perfect excuse to do it right there. I literally am sitting there and cannot move, so why not practice? And I started allowing myself to like process a lot of emotions that I've been kind of avoiding and running from for quite a few years now. And that was like very cathartic, looking back now a few days later. And as uncomfortable as all of this was, being put in a position where I was forced with sort of nothing else to do but look at these things, it's like, in a weird way, I'm almost sort of grateful for the experience. I mean, it was hell. It was certainly no fun, but I feel like now that I'm just getting back to actually, the stuff that I was previously working on, I have a much different, like, sort of attitude and perspective towards it all. I can already feel myself like being less hard on myself for a lot of the shit that I was like not living up to all this long. And I could have chosen to be bitter about all of it and just been like, fuck this is stupid, it should just go away and blah, blah, blah. And I was like that for the first few days. Like, when this first happened, the first thing I was thinking of is like, Jesus Christ, I need to get this video done. This video is already like weeks late and I can't even fucking do it. It's sitting right there. I can see it. And now it's like, all of that is true. It is important that I get these things done, but I'm not really like sort of like whipping myself into shape like 24/7 anymore to it's almost like I was in fight or flight 24/7. It's like just constant adrenaline, like all this shit needs to be taken care of, sorted out, and it's like a million things at once, and I'm not even working on any of it. I'm just kind of freezing up and doing nothing about it. And I feel like being forced to be frozen and do nothing about all of this has really helped me see sort of like how ridiculous it was the way that I was treating myself. And, like, I'm not saying that everyone is going to find themselves in exactly the same situation or maybe extract the exact same lesson, but for whatever reason, it feels like what I just went through in the past week really was something that I personally needed in a way that maybe only I can understand. It's hard to explain, but I would encourage others who are in a situation that they can't really control and just kind of objectively sucks. I would encourage you to like switch to more of like an attitude of curiosity with it, like what kind of opportunity could this bring for me? What kind of like things could I learn from this or take away from it? How is my life different now because of this situation? And why could that potentially benefit me in the future? Because like, I do believe we have free will, and, we can either choose to like degenerate or choose to grow. And I mean, it's like, I'm really glad that I had this kind of attitude, because I almost feel like it helped me get better. Like, sort of as I started feeling better, my body stopped being as tense, and I was sort of able to actually relax for the first time in what felt like years. Like, I haven't even watched any TV shows or anything like that for like 5 or 6 years now, because I've just kept telling myself that like, if I have the time to sit on my ass and do nothing, I have the time to like produce something or, get something accomplished. And ironically, it's like I would really just end up feeling overwhelmed and freezing under all this pressure and still do nothing anyway. So like to be forced to do nothing, it really changed everything for me. So what I'm trying to say is, you know, like, do your best if you can to stop fighting or stop running or avoiding whatever it is that you're dealing with at the moment. Like, and maybe just ask yourself like what it could be showing you. And you might start to come up with some answers that you didn't expect. Because personally, for me, and how this applies to my situation, especially with YouTube, is like, I've been teetering on getting this channel monetized for years now. Like, I've been much closer to, you know, getting over that hump than you might think for a long, long time now. And actually, my previous YouTube channel that I had years ago when I was 13 years old, I actually got that channel partnered and monetized, and I signed with a network at the time, because back then you needed the networks to actually become a YouTube partner. So it's like, I've always been sort of capable of these goals that I have on YouTube, yet like I've started to realize how I've been distracting myself for so long, you know, and I have a feeling that I'm really on the cusp of being able to kind of take off from here and be more consistent on my channel. And if that does happen, if you check back a few months from now after this is posted and see how my channel is doing, I'm gonna credit and attribute all of that to this experience I've just had. So who knows how this will age in the future, but best of luck to whatever situation you might have going on. And that's how I dealt with mine for the past 6 days. I am so grateful right now to be able to stand up like this and walk around, jump. I can do jumping jacks, you know. I'm so grateful for that. More than I've ever been in my whole life. So yeah, that's what I've been up to. I got a few videos coming out very soon, so check those out.